Every child who has ever looked at a map has asked the same question. Do these continents fit together? In 1912, a scientist named Alfred Wegener didn't just ask the question, he answered it. And for that answer, the scientific world would try to destroy him. Wegener was not a geologist, he was a meteorologist, an Arctic explorer, and an outsider. When he stood before the German Geological Society and proposed that continents slowly drifted across the face of the Earth, he was declaring war on centuries of established belief. The reaction was not curiosity, it was contempt. They called his life's work delirious ravings, a footloose hypothesis. He was ridiculed not for a lack of evidence, but for the sheer audacity of the idea. Alfred Wegener presented a mountain of evidence, fossils that matched across oceans, rock layers that aligned like pages of the same book, the scars of ancient glaciers in now tropical lands. His theory of continental drift explained it all with one elegant idea. But he had one fatal flaw. He could not explain how the continents moved. He proposed forces that physicists easily dismissed, and for the geological establishment, that was enough. A flawed mechanism meant the entire idea was rubbish. The evidence was ignored. He died in 1930, a forgotten man, on the Greenland ice, his theory buried with him. The textbooks wrote him off as a curious footnote, a cautionary tale of a scientist who wandered too far from his field. But the continents themselves kept his secret, and 40 years after his death, a revolution in science would exhume his work, prove his evidence correct, and crown Alfred Wegener the visionary founder of a new understanding of our planet. This is the story of the man who moved continents, a story of how the truth can be ridiculed, buried, and triumphantly resurrected. To understand Alfred Wegener, you must first understand that he was not a specialist, he was a synthesizer, a meteorologist who studied the global atmosphere. He was an Arctic explorer who traversed vast, moving ice sheets, and his mind was trained to see patterns on a planetary scale. The story goes that in 1910, while recovering from an injury, he was struck by the obvious fit of the continents across the Atlantic. But a jigsaw puzzle isn't proof, so he looked deeper. He found identical fossils on continents now separated by oceans. Take the Mesosaurus, a small reptile that lived in freshwater lakes. It could not have swam the Atlantic. Yet its fossils are found only in eastern South America and western Africa. He then looked at the rocks themselves. The geology didn't stop at the coast. Ancient mountain belts, like the Appalachians in the United States, lined up perfectly with mountains in Scotland and Norway, and coal seams in North America matched those in Europe. The most puzzling clues came from ancient climates. Evidence of massive glaciers was found in lands that are now tropical, and fossils of tropical plants were found in Antarctica. The only explanation? These continents were not always where they are today. They had drifted from different climate zones. Wegener did what no one else had done. He synthesized the clues from biology, geology, and climatology into a single, breathtaking theory. He proposed that around 300 million years ago, all Earth's land was united in a single supercontinent. He named it Pangaea, meaning all Earth. But he had to answer the how. And here, the meteorologist overreached. He proposed that continents, like giant icebreakers, plowed through the seafloor. He suggested the spinning of the Earth, and the pull of the tides provided the force. It was a creative guess, but a weak one. In 1912, he presented his theory of continental drift. He laid out the 4 lines of evidence with clarity. He presented Pangaea. The audience, the guardians of geological orthodoxy, listened, and they were horrified. The problem wasn't just the weak mechanism. The problem was the idea itself. It was too big, too revolutionary. It came from an outsider. It threatened to overthrow everything they thought they knew about a stable, unchanging Earth. Wegener had thrown down the gauntlet. He had the evidence. They had the authority. A war was declared. And the first battle, the battle for acceptance, was one he would lose decisively. The reaction to Wegener's theory wasn't debate. It was ridicule. In the press and in academic circles, continental drift was treated not as a hypothesis, but as a joke. The first weapon was mockery. But the real damage came from the scientific authorities. They didn't just laugh, they attacked his evidence with what they considered a better explanation. Their answer? Land bridges. giant strips of land that once connected the continents, allowing animals to cross, and then mysteriously sank into the ocean without a trace. It was an ad hoc solution. Invent a landmass, then destroy it. But it preserved the idea of fixed continents, so it was accepted. The criticism turned personal and vicious. Leading American geologist Thomas Chamberlain warned peers not to even quote Wegener, calling it a dangerous method. He was dismissed as an outsider, a meteorologist dabbling in geology. His interdisciplinary synthesis was used against him, and they had a legitimate scientific point. His mechanism was wrong. The physics didn't work. For the establishment, this was the kill shot. They committed a logical fallacy. His engine is broken, therefore his map is wrong. They used the flawed how to dismiss the overwhelming what. Wegener fought back the only way he knew how. With more data, he refined his work through 4 editions of his book, adding more evidence. But he was shouting into a gale. The geological community had closed ranks. The cost was professional. He was passed over for prestigious chairs in geology. He found a home in meteorology at a smaller university. His grand theory became a career-limiting liability. In 1930, on his 4th expedition to Greenland, Wegener and a companion set out on a resupply mission in a brutal blizzard. His goal was to establish a winter weather station, true to his roots as a meteorologist. He never returned. His body was found the following May. The man who envisioned continents in motion was buried by the moving ice he dedicated his life to studying. With its author gone, continental drift was officially buried. For the next 30 years, it was textbook orthodoxy. Wegener was a well-meaning but misguided outsider. The continents were fixed. End of story. But a question remained. If Wegener was so wrong, why did his evidence fit together so perfectly? The fossils, the rocks, the glaciers, they were still there. The establishment had explained them away with sinking land bridges and coincidence. But the puzzle pieces were real. They were just waiting for someone to look at the map again. For a generation after Wegener's death, his theory was a ghost, taught only as an example of how not to do science. But the ghost wouldn't stay buried because the evidence wouldn't go away. The key to unlocking the mystery came from an unlikely place: World War II. The war had spawned new technologies: sonar, magnetometers, deep-sea exploration. For the first time, we could see the bottom of the ocean. And what they found changed everything. A massive, continuous underwater mountain range, taller than the Alps, encircling the Earth like the seam on a baseball. They called it the mid-ocean ridge. This was no ancient feature. It was a fresh, giant scar on the planet's crust. Even more shocking was the age of the sea floor. The rocks right at the ridge were newborn, geologically speaking. The farther you moved away, the older they got. The ocean floor wasn't ancient. It was being manufactured at the ridge and pushed outward. Then, in the 1960s, the ultimate clue. As ships mapped the magnetic field locked into the seafloor rocks, they found a zebra stripe pattern. These stripes were a record of Earth's magnetic field flipping over millions of years, and the pattern was perfectly symmetrical on both sides of the ridge. The meaning was undeniable. The seafloor was spreading. New crust was born at the ridge, pushing the old crust apart. This was the engine Wegener had missed. The continents weren't plowing, they were passengers on giant, moving plates of crust. In a stunningly short time, the entire field of Earth science flipped. The new theory was plate tectonics. Wegener's drift was the symptom. The moving plates were the cause. Every piece of his rejected evidence suddenly made perfect, beautiful sense. The vindication was total. The fossils, the matching rocks, the misplaced glaciers, they weren't problems to be explained away. They were the direct, predictable consequences of continents moving. Wegener's map was right. His evidence was right. Only his engine was wrong. Alfred Wegener did not live to see his triumph. He died a heretic. It took a technological revolution and a new generation of scientists, unburdened by old dogma, to see what he had seen 50 years earlier. His story forces a hard question. How many times have we dismissed a brilliant truth because the person who spoke it was an outsider or because they got one detail wrong? 2 maps, one drawn from intuition and evidence, rejected in its time, the other built from satellites and supercomputers, confirming every major claim of the first. Wegener's legacy isn't just the moving continents. It's a warning that evidence, no matter how inconvenient, has a stubborn way of being right in the end. They show the same truth. We live on a planet that is alive, restless, and constantly remaking itself. The greatest irony of Alfred Wegener's story is that today, his idea is so fundamental, we take it for granted. Earthquakes, volcanoes, the Himalayas, they are all symptoms of the moving plates he described. He gave us the framework to understand our planet's violence and beauty, but he received only scorn for the gift. So, what did we really discover? That continents move? Yes. But more importantly, we discovered how hard it is for the human mind to accept a truth that shatters its reality. We discovered that institutions defend their walls more fiercely than they pursue truth. Wegener's story leaves us with an unsettling question. What brilliant truth are we rejecting today? What evidence is staring us in the face, waiting for a future generation with better tools or clearer eyes to finally see it? The battle isn't just between ideas and evidence. It's between evidence and our own deep need for a stable, unchanging world. Alfred Wegener defended a truth with patience and evidence. He was a defender forgotten in his time, remembered in ours. His victory was posthumous, but it was absolute. If you believe in uncovering these forgotten victories for truth, help us find the next one. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell. This has been For What It's Worth.